You wake up as a crusader. You didn't choose this life, but here you are. Good news? You're strong, muscular, trained for battle. You're ready for challenges, but hunger is your greatest enemy. Not the hunger you feel when you skip a meal. This is a painful, dull hunger that gnaws at you from within, that makes your head spin, that drives you to unthinkable things. Today, we won't talk about knightly battles or glorious campaigns. Today, we delve deep into the darkness, into stories of how Crusaders survived when all else failed. We'll talk about the most bizarre ways they had to find food just to stay alive. A Crusader's life was hard. Days pass, weeks, months. You march, you fight, you search for food. But hunger is constantly present. It's a painful, dull hunger that gnaws at you from within, that makes your head spin, that drains all your strength. Your clothes hang on you, your muscles waste away, you become a skeleton. Every morning you wake up with the same empty feeling in your stomach, with the same question, will I eat today? You don't have the luxury of thinking about anything else. Your body is exhausted, your mind is slow, and every step is an effort. Your bones ache, your muscles are weak, and your head is often clouded with dizziness. Sleep is rare and interrupted, full of nightmares about food you can't reach. Every time you close your eyes, you see a feast, but when you open them, you see only dust and faces distorted by hunger. Before we continue with this story, if you enjoy this content, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, but only if you honestly mean it. The moment comes when ordinary hunting no longer helps. There's no more game nearby. Fields are devastated. Villages plundered. What now? Your body screams for food. Your mind is clouded. This is where what we call crazy ways of survival begin. Not because they were crazy in the sense of madness, but because they were so desperate and contrary to everything human, which makes us ask ourselves, would I do that? When life is at stake, boundaries shift very quickly. There is no too much when it comes to survival. You forget what you thought you knew about yourself, about morality, about what is right or wrong. The only law becomes the instinct for survival. Your only goal becomes to survive another day, regardless of the cost, regardless of what you have to do. Morality, faith, humanity, all of it fades before the unbearable pain of an empty stomach. You forget your nightly vows. Only the raw instinct for survival remains. This is the moment when a man turns into a beast, driven by only one goal, to survive. There are no more rules, only raw need. Your eyes become empty, and the only spark of life is in the search for the next bite. You watch your comrades, once proud knights, turn into shadows, starved and desperate, ready for anything, and you know you are one of them. The whisper of hunger spreads through the camp, louder than any command. People begin to look at each other with a strange, new kind of hunger in their eyes, not just with brotherly concern. Every supply, every scrap of food becomes the subject of fierce quarrels and fights. Discipline breaks down, and the army, once united in faith, is now a group of desperados. There is no more order, only chaos that threatens to engulf you. Every day is a struggle for survival, not only against the enemy, but also against yourself and your comrades. Your clothes, once a proud uniform, are now just dirty rags hanging on your emaciated body. Your armor, once your protection, is now a burden dragging you down. Every step is painful. Every movement is an effort. Your body is covered in sores and wounds that won't heal. You've forgotten what it's like to be full. what it's like to feel strength in your muscles. The only strength that holds you is sheer despair. The air in the camp is heavy, filled with the smell of sweat, dirt, disease, and death. There's no escaping it. This is your new reality. You hear coughing, moans, quiet prayers, and curses. Some comrades simply sit down and wait for death, too exhausted to fight. You are not one of them. You still have a spark of hope, a spark of madness that drives you to continue. The psychological burden is unbearable. Constant fear of hunger, disease, and the enemy gnaws at your soul. At night, as you lie awake, you hear the sounds of the camp, coughing, groaning, quiet conversations about food, about home, about death. Sometimes you hear the whisper of prayer, but more often you hear curses and blasphemies. Your dreams are full of food, rich feasts, fresh bread, and juicy meat. But when you wake up, reality hits you with full force. An empty stomach, a dry mouth, aching bones. Your will is tested to its limits, and every day is a struggle not to fall into despair. You look at the faces of your comrades, once full of pride and faith, now distorted by hunger and fatigue. Some have lost their minds, muttering to themselves or laughing for no reason. You know that could happen to you too. Marching has become slower, more painful. Every step is agony. Your legs are swollen, your feet covered in blisters and wounds. Your armor feels heavier than ever. The sun bakes or the rain pours, but you must keep going. There's no rest, no surrender. Behind you are thousands of kilometers, and ahead of you is uncertainty. Every time you pass a village, you see devastated fields, burned houses. You know that you and your comrades are responsible for it, but also that it was the only way to survive. There's no turning back, just forward into the unknown. Sometimes, as you march, you feel like a ghost, as if your body just keeps moving, while your mind is somewhere else, dreaming of food. You forget the names of your comrades, you forget why you're here. Only instinct remains. When you're hungry to the bone, when your army is crumbling from starvation, you no longer choose. Every living creature, and even the inanimate, becomes a potential salvation. Imagine this: your faithful warhorse, who has carried you through countless battles, is now your only hope. Or the hunting dog that brought you prey. In a quieter voice, the heartbreaking truth is that they eat them, not just horses and mules, which were a large source of meat, but also dogs, cats, and even rats and mice. Every animal that could be caught, regardless of its role or your relationship with it, became food. It's a terrible choice, but the only one when death knocks at the door. The meat is tough but full of protein. There's no room for sentimentality. Your horse was your transport, but in despair, it becomes your meal. You imagine the sadness and shame, but also the relief as you eat the animal that was your comrade. Horse meat is bitter, but it gives strength. Dog meat is strange, but it fills your stomach. Every bite is a reminder of how low you've fallen, but also how far you're willing to go to survive. There are no rituals, no gratitude, just raw, crude eating. Bones are broken, skin is chewed. Everything that can be extracted from the animal is used. Even entrails, which would normally be discarded, become precious. The smell of cooked meat, no matter how unpleasant, becomes the most beautiful smell in the world. But even that is just the beginning. When even such meat runs out, Crusaders turn to something far more terrifying. The peak of despair is cannibalism. During the worst sieges, when supplies were completely exhausted and thousands of people were dying of hunger, some Crusaders resorted to eating human flesh. The most famous and terrifying example occurred during the siege of Ma'arat al-Numan in 1098. Historical records state that Crusaders ate the bodies of dead enemies and even their fallen comrades. You imagine that scene. People are so starved that they decide on such an act, not for pleasure, but out of a pure desire to survive another day. Some even, according to records, openly sold human flesh. This is a sign that morale has completely collapsed, that people have become beasts driven by primordial instinct. This was not a matter of choice, but of extreme, absolute necessity. The very thought of it sends shivers down your spine, but it was a brutal reality. There are no tears, only emptiness in their eyes, and the cold realization that you have crossed a line from which there is no return. The smell of cooked human flesh, the quiet whispers, and the look in the eyes of those who do it, that is something that haunts you for the rest of your life. This is the moment when a night ceases to be a night and a man ceases to be a man. Corpses pile up around the camp, and those who survived look at them not with horror, but with a calculated, cold logic of survival. This was the edge of human endurance, a point from which few returned unscathed. This decision to resort to cannibalism was not easy, nor was it universal. Many fought against it, some preferred to die of starvation. But for those who did it, it was a line they crossed, a line that forever changed their soul. These were not just isolated cases. At certain times during the siege, it became almost common. Reports speak of markets where human flesh was sold, of soldiers hiding to avoid being eaten. This was a world where hunger destroyed all moral frameworks. There is no more honor, no more chivalry, only the raw instinct for survival. Every day brought new decisions about life and death, about how much you are willing to sacrifice to survive. Some prayed for a quick death, others clung to the last remnants of hope, and still others became cold and calculating, ready for anything. There is no more compassion, only a fight for one's own life. Sometimes, groups of Crusaders would fight among themselves for corpses, which further showed how out of control the situation was. Knights fought against peasants, and Christians against Christians, all because of hunger. When there's no meat, no plants, nothing, a person turns to things that are not meant to be eaten at all. Your shield, your boots, belts, armor straps, all of it is made of leather. In moments of despair, Crusaders stripped the leather from these items. The leather is then boiled for hours, even days, to soften it. Even after prolonged boiling, it's tough, tasteless, and extremely difficult to digest. It doesn't have much nutritional value, but it gives the feeling of chewing something, of something passing down your throat. It's a desperate attempt to trick the body, to temporarily quell the burning hunger. Imagine the taste and smell of boiled straps. It's the taste of despair, a bitter reminder of how low you've fallen. Every bite is agony, but also a small victory over death. You can't digest it, but you can feel something in your stomach. The leather would often turn into a gelatinous mass, but even that was better than nothing. Some would try to bake it over a fire, hoping it would become tastier, but the result was the same, a bitter, inedible mass that would only temporarily alleviate the pain of hunger. Your teeth fought against the tough leather, your gums bled, but you didn't give up. Sometimes, if they found parchment, the skin on which books and documents were written, or paper, they would try to eat that too. It had absolutely no nutritional value, but it was a sign of extreme despair, an attempt to put anything into the stomach. You imagine chewing dry paper just to feel something in your mouth. Every piece is precious, not for the knowledge it carries, but for the illusion of food, for the feeling of doing something against hunger. Maybe you'd soak it in a little water if there was any to make it easier to swallow. This is the peak of a futile attempt to trick hunger. Old documents, perhaps even religious texts, became mere chewing material. There was no respect for sacred scriptures, only the need for anything that could deceive the stomach. In the worst moments, people try to chew bark and even gnaw on parts of wood, hoping to extract at least some moisture or nutrients. This is a pure illusion, but despair makes people do strange things. You have nothing else, so you try to extract something from something that was never meant to be food. This is a sign that you are on the very edge, that your body is so starved that it tries to digest even the indigestible. Branches, leaves, anything that could be put in your mouth becomes potential, albeit useless, food. Your body is tormented and your mind seeks any escape from the pain. Your teeth break, your gums bleed, but you keep going because hunger is stronger than pain. Every day is a new test, a new boundary you cross. There's no more strength for doubt, only for action. Beyond these extreme methods, Crusaders also had to contend with a lack of basic necessities for food preparation. There were no proper cooking utensils, no spices, or even abundant fire. Meat would often be eaten raw or semi-cooked, which further increased the risk of disease. They had no concept of bacteria or hygiene. The only disinfection was fire, but even that was rare. You imagine eating raw, foul-smelling meat, knowing it could kill you, but hunger is stronger. Often, meat would be eaten with maggots, as there was no time or way to clean it. Every bite was disgusting, but necessary. Sometimes, they would try to cook in a helmet or other improvised containers, but this was rare and ineffective. When even the smallest animal hides and the leather is eaten, only one thing remains: nature. But nature is full of traps. When your stomach roars, you no longer care too much if something is safe. You gather anything that resembles a plant or root that might be edible, but without true knowledge, it's Russian roulette. One wrong berry, one wrong root, and the entire group can die in agony. Many Crusaders die from poisoning, not from the enemy's sword. It's a quiet, terrible death, often accompanied by vomiting, diarrhea, and cramps. People hope to find salvation, but they find their end. There's no doctor to save you, only pain and death. You imagine watching your comrades writhe in agony because they ate the wrong plant. Some die within hours, others suffer for days. Their bodies shake, their skin turns green or blue, and their eyes roll back. It's a sight that's etched into your memory. There was no one to warn you, only your own intuition, which was often wrong. Furthermore, in desperation, they drink from stagnant, polluted puddles. They eat meat that has been left in the sun for days and smells rotten. The consequence? Mass epidemics. Dysentery, typhus, cholera. These diseases kill far more Crusaders than any battle. Filth, insects, and lack of hygiene turn every meal and every drop of water into a potential deadly potion. Hospitals don't exist. There are no medicines. If you get sick, your chances are almost nil. Camps are full of the sick and dying, and the stench is unbearable. Often you have to march past decaying corpses, spreading even more infection. Water is the most important, but also the most dangerous. Drinking from rivers full of corpses or stagnant puddles is common because there is no other choice. Every drop of water could be your last. Your intestines cramp Diarrhea drains your strength and fever shakes you. You know you're infected and you know the end is near. You don't even have the strength to move, and your comrades leave you to die by the roadside. Diseases spread faster than wildfire in dry grass. One sick person could infect an entire tent, and soon the entire camp. Coughing, vomiting, diarrhea, high fever, these were the sounds and sights of daily life. They had no idea about bacteria or viruses. They believed it was God's punishment or bad air. They could do nothing but pray and wait for death. Graves were dug day and night, but often there weren't enough people to bury all the dead. Bodies piled up, attracting scavengers and spreading even more disease. It was hell on earth, created not only by the enemy, but also by hunger itself and its consequences. There's no escaping, no hiding. Death is everywhere around you, and you are just waiting for your turn. The lack of fresh water was perhaps even worse than the lack of food. Dehydration killed quickly. In desert areas, thirst was unbearable. People drank their own urine or animal blood just to survive. It was a struggle for every drop of liquid, and often that liquid was contaminated and brought even greater suffering. The sights of people fighting for the last drops of water or falling dead from thirst were common. There was no mercy, only harsh reality. Some tried to drink dew from leaves in the morning, but it was barely enough to moisten their lips. The sun beat down relentlessly, making the thirst even more agonizing. When hunger is unbearable, all moral barriers fall. Although pillaging was common in war, Crusaders took it to a new level of desperation. They not only took food, but destroyed crops, burned villages, and killed inhabitants, leaving devastation in their wake. This created even more hostility and made future food foraging more difficult. But at that moment, hunger was the only master. There was no mercy. Every village was a potential source, but also a potential target for destruction. You see your comrades, perhaps even yourself, taking what you need regardless of the cries and tears of the local population. There's no time for pity. Children's cries, women's screams, all of it becomes just background noise as your men, driven by hunger, break into homes and steal food. Starving Crusaders did not hesitate to use brutal violence to get food. Threats, torture, and killing of local inhabitants became common to uncover hidden supplies. This was a harsh reality where human life had little value in the face of hunger. Your comrades, once knights, became looters, driven only by the instinct for survival. You cannot turn your head away because you are part of it yourself, or you depend on it. You often hear screaming from villages, and you know what is happening. This is the price of survival. You don't have the strength to resist, even if you want to. You yourself are hungry, and you yourself are desperate. Scenes of violence become daily occurrences, and your soul becomes numb to the horrors. Although pillaging brought short-term relief, in the long run it created enemies and made the journey even more dangerous. The local population would unite, set ambushes, and fight to the death to protect what little they had left. Crusaders walked through land they themselves had turned hostile. Every time they approached a settlement, they knew resistance awaited them because previous Crusaders had already plundered it. This was a vicious cycle of violence and hunger. There was no peace, only constant conflicts and a struggle for every bite. The journey becomes a continuous ambush. Every bush, every rock, potentially hiding an enemy waiting to attack you. Every day was a risk, and your enemies were not just soldiers, but also peasants, shepherds, all those you had plundered. There was no safe place. Even when the army encamped, it had to send large groups to forage for food, making them easy targets for ambushes. There were no more surprises. The local population knew their tactics. Every act of pillage was a victory for that day, but it ensured a harder tomorrow. Supplies dwindled and hostility grew. This was the price of survival, a price paid in blood and suffering. There is no doubt that hunger was the most powerful weapon in this war, a weapon that destroyed armies from within before they even faced the enemy. The very landscape seemed to turn against them, a reflection of their own desperate acts. The story of how Crusaders hunted for food is not a story of glamorous adventures. It is a story of harsh survival, of a daily struggle against hunger, disease, and exhaustion. They did not have the logistics of modern armies, nor could they count on a secure supply. Their motivation, although driven by faith and the desire to liberate the Holy Land, is inextricably linked to the basic human instinct for survival. Every rabbit caught, every berry gathered, every piece of meat obtained by plunder is a victory in that constant struggle. This story reminds us that the life of a crusader is far from romantic notions. It was a life full of hardship, disease, and the constant threat of death. Their endurance, not only in battle but also in the daily search for food, speaks of the incredible strength of the human spirit. They have no choice. They must fight for every bite, for every drop of water, for every day of life. So the next time you sit down at the table and have a hearty meal, remember the Crusaders and their eternal hunger. Remember the struggle they waged just to survive another day, and ask yourself, would you have endured? Probably not. I hope this insight into the harsh reality of Crusader life was interesting to you. If you liked the video, be sure to like it, share it, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. What fact about their struggle for food surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below. See you next time.